Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shells, desolates, horse peasants, vassals, maidens, meat sacks. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. And let's go back to Syria again. Just like the good old days back when I was doing videos before. Now we have Turkey invading northern Syria. And once again, this story is a few weeks old um, at best. And but it's an important story because it certainly once again changes the narrative of the whole coup in Turkey, supposedly against Erdogan, when right after the coup happens, his powers consolidated in the military, and then he opens up an offensive in a neighboring country, northern Syria. And I've done videos about this whole region before, this whole border area, because ostensibly Turkey already invaded northern Syria, building fortifications and controlling border points all along their border with Syria previously, and in many occasions infringing on Syrian territory. But now we have ostensibly a no-fly zone being established, and this Turkish invasion being billed as an anti-ISIS operation. But of course, the real narrative of this Turkish invasion is to roll back Kurdish gains in Syria, and that's what this is really all about. And we see the Turkish government and the Syrian government, which is ostensibly the Syrian government is the enemy, and yet we see evidence that they're coordinating their efforts against the Kurds. So once again, we see a very complicated situation in this region with alliances shifting back and forth. So now the U.S. is pulling back its support of the Kurds in northern Syria, and once again, the Kurds find themselves being the only one fighting the fight in that region, and yet the U.S. is going to betray them. And also it shows some kind of weird reconciliation, not only between Turkey and Syria in some respects, but this also this other announcement that Turkey and Russia are going to coordinate their efforts. So what a strange turnabout after the coup in Turkey that we find Erdogan, after downing a Russian jet and being defiant before, now kissing and making up and coordinating his efforts with Russia. And in fact, we can see that Russia didn't even react to the Turkish incursion in Syria. And so they appear to be on board with that. But like I say, we have the real reason for this Turkish invasion of northern Syria is to roll back Kurdish advances and now have this coordination with Russia. Strange bedfellow. So this all happened in the Syrian border town of Jarablus, and the Turks shelled Kurds and ISIS with U.S. air support. Now a story just came out in the last couple of days too that shows that there's supposedly 300 special forces only working in Syria, and a number of them are embedded with the Turkish military in this operation in the north. So what an about face for the U.S. In these complicated alliances. And so 1,500 Syrian rebels were also assembled in Turkey to take part in this Turkish operation. And as we know, Turkey will not allow a Syrian partition, so they want to undermine the territorial gains made by the Kurds and in any other groups in that country. And the last week of August, this happened. So already this story is about 3 weeks old. But Turkish tanks and special forces joined in this assault. And one of the other developments that, like I say, makes this all the more complicated is that we have the Kurds and Assad fighting now. Pretty much since the beginning of the so-called civil war in Syria, the Kurds had sort of an agreement with the Assad government, and the Assad government could focus in on the foreign terrorists taking over the country, and the Kurds were left to maintain relatively peaceful areas. And there's been clashes, certainly with ISIS. Kurds in Syria have had vicious clashes with ISIS for a long time, seem to be left alone by both ISIS and the Assad government, but that is no longer true. We had 6 days of fighting between the YPG, the Kurdish groups, and Syrian forces, and we also had Syrian Air Force striking Kurdish positions for the first time in I think 5 years. So anyway, and then we also have the U.S. Threatens to see both Syria and Russia for any airstrikes against the U.S. YPG, but apparently that's already water under the bridge, because now we have Turkey involved in attacking the YPG in northern Syria. So once again, we have Hezbollah and the Iranians in Syria, Western Special Forces in Syria. Um, the alliance is shifting back and forth all the time, and now this new development with Turkey actually physically invading Syria really makes this situation all the more complicated. Just when you thought nothing else could happen and any more complicated than it already was, this happens after 5 years. And as we know, and particularly viewers of my videos, it's all the more perplexing considering that we know of Turkish complicity with the ISIS fighters in in Syria, and have been buying their oil and helping them smuggle and feeding soldiers and weapons into the ISIS effort in Syria. Now find them probably paying lip service to attacking certain groups, probably more interested in some than others. But we have 50,000 Kurdish fighters, YPG fighters, and 2 million Kurds living in Syria. So if this continues to be an issue, it could get to be another sub-theater, another war, another even more deadly complication to the events in this region already. So what a strange world. Now Turkey going the complete so-called opposite direction. Although, like I said before, I think everybody's all interested in similar things, and these interests may overlap sometimes and not others, and that a lot of the adversarial relationships are political posturing in the public. And a lot of these governments are probably working a little closer together than we might imagine sometimes. And this is certainly one of those situations as it gets more and more complicated. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.